Hi everyone, welcome to another Creative English Club meeting. Tonight our special guest is a creative director who is currently working in New York and has worked on some of the biggest agencies in the world. So let's get started. So before we get to introducing our special guest, we're going to kick off with the introductions of our lovely moderators. So first, I'd like to call here Bruna. So Bruna is, hello, she is an art director, and one fun fact about her is that she actually lived in Australia for a little while, and she wants to repeat an international experience, but living in another country while also working in her career. So welcome, Bruna.
Thank you very much. Good evening. And next one is our colleague Bruna Ludke. She is a copywriter based in São Paulo. And Bruna loves music, she loves arts, and also traveling a lot. So welcome, Bruna.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. So now I'm going to introduce Italo. Italo is a creative copywriter and proofreader. When he's not pretending to be the next Carrie Bradshaw, he's watching movies, drinking wine, and searching for new clothes to buy. So welcome, Italo.
Hi, Bruna. Thank you very much for your. When I'm not searching for clothes to buy, I am trying to see how I'm gonna pay to it. The next guest, it's Pamela. She not only is a graphic designer based in Cascavel, city in the interior of Paraná, but she's also a photographer and she owns an e-commerce. She loves coffees and baking cakes. Oh, and her favorite color is blue.
Thank you, Italo. Now I'm going to introduce my other colleague, Tatiana. She is a marketing professional based in Curitiba. She loves to travel, try new things, especially foods. She's a gastronomy enthusiast. Tati also loves to listen to some electronic music, which is her favorite.
Good evening, everyone. Happy to be here with you all. And now I will call Mari back, who is our host at the Creative English Club, and she's currently living in Canada.
Oh, thanks everyone for the introductions. It's very lovely to have all of you here. And now without further ado, I'll just bring our guests to the screen. So hello, Javier. It's very nice to have you here with us. Not sure if, is this the background noise is you?
Sorry, can you hear? Everyone can hear me okay?
Oh, yes, for sure. I'm just hearing like the song, and I'm not sure of like where it's coming from. But if it's you, like it's okay. We'll keep going.
Oh, you're hearing the song. Is it bothering you too much?
No, I think like the volume is okay. Is the volume okay for everyone? Yeah.
Would you like me to? I can try to talk to them and turn it down a little bit.
So the lifestyle of remote working, right? Everyone, like each one of us is in a corner of the world. That's how it goes. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you for that. And thanks so much for being here and sharing a little bit of your story with us. I'm sure everyone who's watching has seen a little bit about your professional bio already, since it's in the description of the video. And this is why they were here, right? To hear more about you. So I'd just like to get started with like a question that is, you're working in New York right now, but up until then you were working in Mexico still. Did you start working with international projects while you were living in Mexico, or when did that start? When did you start considering your career international?
Well, to be really honest with you guys, and first of all, I'm really excited to be here. I couldn't tell that at the beginning, but answering the question, I always kind of knew, or at least I wanted to work abroad at some point in my life. But when I started working in advertising, I didn't knew the exact time where I was gonna be moving. So I have barely a year working in the US. So it's a new experience for me. Still a new experience.
Nice. And this is your first time doing like a full-time position in English, like in your second language?
Yes, a full-time position. Yeah, for sure. I mean, back at Ogilvy, when I used to work at Ogilvy, I used to have a lot of meetings in English, and I had to check things with directors and mostly the production part of the work. But right now, it's everything in English, full time. All my colleagues, most of my colleagues, speak in English, so every day, like, I'm working 24/7 right now.
Yeah, just a flip on the language, huh? Nice. So I'm gonna pass it off to Bruna Moraes for her question.
Hi, Javier. Well, my question to you is during the pandemic caused by coronavirus, beer was banned in Mexico because it was not considered an essential activity. Could you explain to us about the beer Victoria case, the one that was born to help the Mexican economy?
Yes, for sure. I mean, I love that brand. Cerveza Victoria is one of, I would say, I mean, there are a lot of really cool brands and beer brands in Mexico, but I would say that Cerveza Victoria and Corona are the two most important brands right now in Mexico. So for Victoria focuses a little bit more like for the common people, I would say the popular people. And when the pandemic happened, um, and I believe it wasn't just only us back at the agency, but I believe like the whole industry, the whole advertising industry was like expecting to see what was going to happen, because there were like a lot of jobs, uh, that everybody was losing jobs, and not just in our industry but outside of it. So talking with the clients, we needed to find a way to keep like producing and to keep working, investing, creating something for the brand. And the client already had like tested, they already have tested like a little bit of the syrup, or the how would I say, mm, yeah, like the mix they use for the beer. And this was like the perfect time for us to take it to the world, because the basic thing they asked was, how could we keep talking about the brand, but at the same time helping this situation and help the rest of the people? Is there a way to do that? So we investigate like a lot. We make a lot of research, and we found out that in Mexico, I believe is 600, like 650,000 of people depend on, like, has direct jobs that depend on the production of the beer. So we said, okay, if the brand already developed this like new formula that only has like a low amount of percentage of alcohol, probably we can sell it, but we need to find a way. So this was not just from the creative side of it. I mean, we were like really connected and work really tight with the client, because the client was his legal department was the one who find out that we could use 1.8% of alcohol in Mexico to avoid, kind of hack the laws. So with that, we said, okay, we can do that. I mean, it's already proved, it's already in the law that we can proceed, that we can approach and tackle this brief with just 1.8% of alcohol, and it's not going to be considered a beer. So we start, I mean, developing the idea, what was going to be the name, and everything was linked for the people, because in Mexico we call it Victoria 1.8, but it was, we use a specific word that is chingones, which mean like people it's like the coolest people, and the coolest people is every people that works hard in Mexico. So we developed the name, we designed the image. It was the fastest creation that the brand developed. And by the brand, I mean not just Cerveza Victoria, because Cerveza Victoria is part of this very big group, which is called AV and Bev. So that group was the one who made the fastest like innovation in the history of the brand, right? And well, we made like a few spots, a really few spots, like about 10-15 seconds. And at that time we couldn't go into big productions because nobody could go out. Everything was like really restrained. So we found a way to make something beautiful and good using just footage. So we created like this, we set up the art direction style of the things to be a little bit more in black and white, to make it feel a little bit subtle. We didn't want this campaign to talk about price points, to talk about hard selling stuff, because it was not the point. It was all about the people. So we developed the first can. It's a black can. If you look for it later on the probably my portfolio or maybe on YouTube, you will find it. And it has like a fist rise up, because it was for us like a really cool iconography, a symbol to tell that every people, all the Mexicans, were raising their hands up to beat this pandemic. So that was, I believe, most of it. A really cool fact too was everything was sold out in the first week or 2 weeks that the beer was on shelves. And actually, it was the only beer on shelves. That's why we use that phrase too for the board. And that was a really cool thing, because it was something that only Cerveza Victoria was doing right there for the people, and it's part of their core brand. So everything was really tight, and for me, it was a really special and cool project, because we were not only um, doing something like for the brand to keep them like selling, because at the end they are brands. We work for them. It's normal, and it's what we do. But at the same time, we really were helping people in our own way, right? I mean, we didn't save the world, but it was a really nice gesture from my point of view to
No,
make.
definitely helped a lot. Don't undersell it. No, that sounds like a project with so much meaning. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Like, I can only imagine how that impacted the people who were actually working with the project, and like work was so sparse during that time, right? So it's truly an amazing project.
Thank you very much. I don't know if I answered it. It was a little bit long, but I don't know if I answered the question.
Definitely covered it. Thanks, Bruno, for the question. And thanks for a couple of people that I see that are tuning in to say hi on YouTube. Just a reminder, anyone can send like questions wherever you're watching, and then we'll bring the questions in. But let's keep going with our moderators. Now, next, Bruna, if you will, ask your question, please.
Yes, sure. Hi, Javier. So I was just gonna ask, what would you say was the most important job of your career? And I don't know if it's that one that you just talked about. And could you tell us more about the process of making it?
Yeah, for sure. To be honest, I feel like fortunate that I have been part of many cool projects. A lot of them are from Cerveza Victoria, because that was the previous last job that I had back at Ogilvy. But I believe that's the one that I'm most proud of. It was for a specific occasion in the calendars in Mexico, which is called el Día de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead. The campaign was called Ignocuicatl, which was translated as songs from someone who passed away, or something like that. I don't remember the exact same phrasing. But at the end, what Ignocuicatl means is this happened actually. I don't remember if it happened before or after the one from Victoria 1.8, but we were still on the pandemic. And this is what it was like so important, because a really important brief for the brand is the Dia de Muertos. But how were we gonna like talk to the people about death in that specific moment when everybody was like unfortunately dying, right? No, the brands didn't want to talk about it, in not even just, I mean, about death or topics like that, but they didn't have the money, they didn't have the posture, I mean, the standpoint to talk about anything. And Victoria, I believe, from my point of view, was really brave to do something at that point. So basically, what did we do is, what we wanted was to remember people that they were not alone in this. And Ignocuicatl is something really cool that we found, which is an ancient Mexican poem. With the culture that developed that poem is the Mexica culture, and it was a poem that they used to say goodbye to their people back in the days, in the old days, right? So at this at this point, I mean, right now there are not a lot of people who write those kind of poems, because it's something really and really old, but it's something really beautiful. So we wanted to give this message through this poem. So we set ourselves to write a poem, this Ignocuicatl, to tell the people that they weren't alone, and that it was basically to tell them, to give them the opportunity to say goodbye, because people were, I mean, they weren't allowed to, back at the hospitals, if somebody was had the COVID, they didn't even let them like go to the doctors and say goodbye to that person, right? So it was a really frustrating thing for the people, for the families, to not being able to give a proper, or have a proper chance to say farewell to their loved ones. So how could we make that? We make this Ignocuicatl poem, saying ourselves goodbye to all the people that was suffering from this situation. And this was portrayed as a film, in which we also use a very cool insight, which was when sometimes when somebody passed away, the family keeps like the rooms like untouched, because that helps them remember, helps the people remember what they used to, how they used to wear, how they used to smell. It's a really cool thing to, I mean, for people to remember. So we decided to set environments where a lot of people, I mean, empty rooms, while we recite this poem, to say goodbye to the people. And at the end, the poem was so well received that organically, if you all still go to the YouTube channel and you look for the comments, it's only people like saying, thank you, Victoria, for letting me say goodbye. Thank you, Victoria, for this really beautiful poem. Thank you, Victoria, for thinking about us in a time where we're suffering this much. And the project like ended. I believe that it may probably like half a year pass, if not the whole year, and we received a really, I mean, one person posted in one of the social media channels from the brand, a really cool message to the brand saying thank you, because it was a woman who had his grandmother and he was ill, but his grandmother really liked the poem, so she wrote it in her own notebook with her hand, by her hand, and she recited like, usually in her day to day. And when her mother passed away, the woman like framed that poem and put it on the wall, and that was the poem that we wrote, that we made. It was something original. It wasn't something we found out somewhere on the internet. We had like we searched for an specialist that work with making ignoquicketles to check like the exact strophes, or how would I say, lines that a poem need to have, and like the rhythm and everything. So that really moved me, because not all the time you get to touch those nerves, and you not usually, I mean, people not usually gives you or says thank you to you because you make advertising, it's basically that. So that's the project that I'm most proud of, I believe.
That's also amazing. And I feel like it's even more like inspiring that like both projects that you explain like come from the same brand, because that just says something about like the core values of the brand and like how like your team worked and like what purpose was like driving all of you. So that's very like inspirational, and again, another amazing project. Thank you for sharing that.
Thanks so much.
And thanks for the question, Bruna. Italo, if you would like to go ahead with your question.
Absolutely. Javier, pleasure to meet you. It's an honor to be here tonight talking to you. So my question is, you worked a long year, a lot of time, worked in Mexico, right? And now you live in New York City. So not only you changed country, you changed also culture, you changed your language and all this stuff. So what have you realized that in the communication and the creative process, what works in Mexico that does not work in USA? What works in USA that does not work in Mexico? How the culture of each country impacts your job, impacts your creative job?
Well, that's a thing that I'm it's a really good question, because it's something that I'm currently experiencing. Like I told you before, I have watched a few of your videos, and that you have interviewed a lot of other people, and you usually ask them like, there are usually people that have spent a few years working abroad, right? But I am fresh. I mean, I just have 1 year. I'm getting used to it. So answering that question is, so far I have found that for me at least, the most important thing that you need to have is ideas and the way you think, because those things are the same here. Right now I'm in Mexico, so here in Mexico, in the US, probably in Japan. I mean, I believe that an idea, if it's a good idea, everybody is going to understand that, and move people. And if they want to pursue it, we just need to craft the right way to tell it. So that's one thing that I would say is, for me at least right now, the most important thing to have and to demonstrate that we can make a good work. And the other thing that it's a reality, it's that the culture is different. So I lived in Mexico for all my life, and I know it's easier to find insights that you relate with, because it's the place where you grew up, right? And it's not that you cannot have those types of insights or anything in another country, but you, at least for me, you have to put a lot of effort into it, because you have to get involved in all this culture. And the way that I'm managing to do that is like talking to people, meeting new people, watching a lot of shows that are in English, hearing podcasts, YouTube channels, reading news, all that can help you like to develop a little bit more the language, that are things that are going to help. But yeah, it's true. For sometimes something might apply in Mexico for Day of the Dead, which you don't have it in the US, and you have like Halloween, and Halloween is lived in a completely different way than what you usually experience back in Mexico. There are things that are important to people in the US that are really not that important to Mexico. And another really cool thing happened. It's not just as another thing to tell you. I have the chance to work also for. I'm working for both. I mean, I'm working for the general market, mostly the American people, but I also work for time to time in some briefs for the Latin American people which lives in the US, and that is a completely different thing from the Mexicans that live in Mexico too. So you need to, I would say, to make a research and start finding things that you feel empathetic with those other people and those other audiences, to be able to come up with new insights in that current culture. That's what I would say.
Wow, that's really nice. So basically, when you are open to new experiences, opening to meet new people, talk to new people, and hear to other stories, you have ideas. And although the culture are different, it's different. The ideas are universal. Basically, that.
Exactly.
So there's always a place where you can have an idea, and that idea being embraced. That's an amazing speech. I loved it.
You phrase it better than me, but that's the whole point.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Italo, for the question. And since you mentioned watching a few of our latest episodes that we've done conversations as well, you probably know that something we ask pretty much every guest is, have you worked with a Brazilian before?
Yes, for sure. I mean, actually, the one friend that was the one who recommended me to make this is from Brazil, and it was a Brazilian duo. They are really good on what they're doing, and I mean, and there are a lot of Brazilian people right now in the agency and you know what? I have always have an admiration for the advertising in Brazil because it's so well done. It's really well crafted. There are really cool insights, really cool ideas. The edits that they make in the showcases are incredible. Mostly, I would say, the art direction in Brazil is spectacular. I mean, back in the day, I would have loved to go to Brazil. I mean, I still want to, and like check all the different ways they. I mean, how did they reach to those exercises? They're really interesting for me. But yeah, I have worked with Brazilians, and I mean, I have nothing but respect to them.
Nice. It's always nice to get an outside perspective. And I don't work with anything creative, so I cannot speak for the art directors, but it is something that is always visually pleasing to see. And I only noticed that when I moved out of Brazil, and then I was like, okay, so the things look different and they're no longer all pleasing to the eye. So they might be a bit more critical there, on how everything gets put out to the public. So yeah, different cultures. Thanks for sharing that. And next, I'll call in Pamela to ask her question.
Hi, Javier. Nice to meet you. I have a question too. You have already won many awards. So for you, what would be essential in a winning project, like the creativity, the creativity, or the copy, the art direction, or you have a partner that always work with you. So for you, what is the main part of a project that wins a lot of awards?
Yes, like the main component to have like an award-winning idea, right?
Yes.
Um, well, I would say something. You mention it, and I have two things. Not all the people has the same things, but at least I have worked with. I have a creative partner, uh, and I have worked with him over these last 8 years. So, at least for me, that's something that really helps me and complements me in a really good way, because it's always good to have another perspective and another opinion uh, about things. And there are some times when you are like so, you get like so invested in something that you lose sight of what it really, I mean, you lose sight of what's the important thing that you wanted to say there. And he always reminds me, I mean, and gets me back on track to to what we need to do. And that goes like both ways. I mean, I compliment him, he compliments me. And I believe if you have somebody you can lean on, it's, at least for me, gonna be definitely much more easier to have good work, and not just work that it's awarded, but work that it's good and that you feel good with. At least for me, the first thing that the thing that needs to come first before the award is, and also then having good work. It's something that I like to do. I mean, something that I feel proud of, uh, and that I say like, okay, this I would put it in my book, in my resume. Um, if I don't feel that way most of the times, I mean, I feel it's not worth it. And the main components to make an award-winning case, yeah, like you said, I believe it. You need to take care of every single detail, because everything comes from a great idea, having a great idea, and the idea comes from having a good observation, or finding a really cool, unique insight that it's universal. And if you have those things, you're I mean, you're going through a good way. Uh, then you need to find a way to tell that story in a different way, and you need to work on the copy that you're gonna use uh, for that piece. And I mean, I'm talking about right now. ev- ev- the way you see the award-winning pieces nowadays is watching the show the case studies, because that like involves everything. But everything starts uh, from every single piece that goes into that actual case. Because if you're like doing probably an integrated branded campaign or something like that, and you have like outdoor pieces, and you have like films, and you have like social, every single piece should be like crafted in its own unique way. If it's like a visual that you need to do a print, you need to take care of the image, the placement of the logos, the composition. If you need to look for a film, probably you need to find a way to tell the story the best. I mean, edit the story in a way that feels like don't feels rushed, but also doesn't feel like too slow, something like that. But basically, I would say you need to have like those things, insights, and a cool like observations to make a piece like works. But definitely there are a lot of cases that I've watched this year in the Cannes Lions, and they, I don't know, I mean, they won, but you still need to get like, it feels even better when you have the best of both worlds: a good idea with a good craft. Not just a good idea, not just a good craft, everything combined together, at least for me.
Thank you for answering the question. So basically, like you always do a good work, and then like you see if it's going to win or something. Like always think about doing your best, right?
Yes, exactly, because we don't usually think about winning just the award. We work about making the best campaign that we can, and then we see if there's a chance that we can take that onto the award shows. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome question. Thank you. Next, Tatiana.
Okay, no. Hi, Javier. Great to have the opportunity to talk to you tonight. And my question is about something you already told us a little bit about, but I would like to know what would you say to all professionals who are listening to you right now and future professionals maybe? What would you say to them that would like to follow an international career path like yours? Sorry, a little bit
Okay.
confused, but I think you could understand what I'm trying to say.
Yes. I mean, what would be something I would tell to those new generations that want to pursue a career in advertising right now, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I love advertising. I consider myself as a nerd of advertising. I'm always watching like references. I get inspired by the work other people do. So I'm always gonna say it's one of the best careers that you could like, yeah, pursue, because it gives you the opportunity to not, and it's not that it's something wrong with those kind of works, but it's, at least for me, to be at an office, sit down at an office all day when you can like be paid for thinking and have fun. That is a really cool thing to do. Sometimes there's like a lot of work, because sometimes, I mean, you cannot have everything, but I always like, in the day, and take the time to say, okay, this is really good. I mean, what I'm doing is a really cool thing. I'm glad that I have the opportunity to be here, and to always aim high, and keep dreaming, because like I told you when we begin the interview, I always knew that I was going to be traveling to another country. I just didn't know when, but I always believed that if I made good work, and work that I was proud of it first, and then I would make other people like proud of me, and I would like a snowball effect, so believing in you is the most important thing you could do. uh, I never take no as an answer. I hate the no word, and I believe that's one of the things that I became in advertising, because I'm always trying to find, why no. I mean, obviously, yes, we can do it. So I would say that to them. I mean, never settle, aim high, keep dreaming, and this is a really cool profession. So I can tell you that.
Nice. Thank you.
And sticking to the subject of advice, talking about creative minds and getting paid for thinking, what happens for you when you hit like a rock, like when you're thinking but like the idea is not getting there? Like how do you go about changing your perspective?
Well, it's because I believe my personality is being in my way, really perfectionist, to be perfectionist. So I'm gonna be honest with you. I when things don't go my way, I sometimes get really frustrated, and I mean, it's awful. Um, and sometimes my creative partner helps me to get out of that place, because you always need the helps from somebody else. We don't live alone in this world. But if you are alone, because sometimes you just are, I mean, the best way that I have found is literally, I mean, step away from the work for a few minutes, breathe, and tell myself, why am I doing this, and what's the reason? And if what I'm doing am I feeling proud of doing it? And most of the times, it's not a magic thing, it's not a magical thing, but sometimes it works out. It's basically like breathing, um, taking time, and everything always figures out. I mean, you will always figure it out.
Awesome. That's very inspirational advice. So yeah, now we're gonna open the floor for like more questions from the moderators and also questions from the comments in case anyone has some. I know Italo, you have another question, so if you want to go ahead, the floor is yours.
Something that I was thinking here, Javier, you said that you can't take no for an answer, and when things don't go your way, you get really frustrated. Are you spoiled?
Am I spoiled? Probably, I would say, as a kid back in the day, yeah, I was a spoiled kid.
But maybe this kind of personality really works well with advertising and really works well in the creative area, right? And when you said before about your campaign, Dia de los Muertos and the coronavirus, and that campaign, we see that in the West society, like you were saying, in the Americas, European and stuff like that, we don't treat death in a very good way. We don't know how to deal with that very well. But we have here in Brazil, and I think the rest of the world thinks that Mexico, it's a place that death it's treated and it's dealt with in a very mature and grown up way. Do you think that two questions actually? Do you think that's really true, or is that just a stereotype? And how do you think the pandemic impacted the way that Mexicans see and deal with death?
Well, answering the first question, to be honest, I don't really know if Mexicans feel like they are mature by taking or by dealing with the dead the way they do. But yeah, I don't think we stop like to think about that. For us, it's just I mean, it's the next step. It's the natural way of life. It's the natural. I mean, and I'm just one Mexican. I'm talking for me, right? There are a lot of Mexicans there, but at least I mean, the life keeps going, and um, you have to be happy that the people that you used to know uh, lived a really good life, and you need to pay like your respects to them, feeling happy. There's not gonna be, I mean, you're not gonna take anything good if you're like down every day, right? I mean, it doesn't mean that you don't have, or you're not allowed to cry or feel it, because that's also part of the process. But it's like just how things are in life, and we like to celebrate that instead of feeling afraid afraid of it, I would say. And for the next question, could you remember me to the next question? Sorry.
I asked how the pandemic affected the way that Mexicans deal with death.
Oh, okay. Well, at first it was really horrible, because people in Mexico go a lot to the cemeteries to pay respects, and back in the day, all the graveyards were like closed down, and that was another step for Mexicans to not being able to say goodbye to their dead, right? So you didn't always see that in just the hospitals, where you weren't allowed to say goodbye to the people like there in front of you, but you also weren't allowed to go to say goodbye or to say hello, or just go there to the graveyards. So I believe when after the 2 years of the pandemic, when people started to retake the initiative of the El Dia de Muertos as we knew it. because it was true that those previous 2 years from pandemic like affected us because we couldn't like celebrate properly. It was like an impediment for us to do the things and treat death the way we're used to treat it. So after that, at least in my house, everything returned to normal, and you put your altar and you pay your respects, and everybody it's happy with that. I mean, we moved. It was a really hard time for everybody, not just for Mexicans, but I believe right now everything's getting back to normal. They are still approaching the death as we used to do.
Nice, thank you very much. It was very satisfactory hearing that. Actually, thank you very much.
A very interesting question. So thank you, Ito, as well. And next, Bruna Lutke, who would like to ask your next question, please?
Yeah, sure. So we talked about working abroad and how it is important to have universal ideas. I was just wondering, how do you think someone from abroad can most contribute to a team in another country?
Somebody from abroad contribute to like the ideas and the projects that we're developing right now in that moment.
Yes, exactly. Like, which do you think are our differentiators? Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I mean when we in the well, at the agency, we not only have like we have a lot of people from different places. We have people from Mexican people, we have Brazilian people, we have Colombian people, a lot of people from England. So I have worked with a few in a few projects that I need to like have to touch point with a lot of different people. And like I would say, like the general ideas, like the general ideas touch everybody, and everybody is like capable of understanding them and feel like connected to them. But sometimes, if I mean, this is just an example, but in Mexico we really love soccer, right? So probably and I'm talking for me because the one that really likes soccer is my creative partner. So he's always like watching these the matches and everything, and sometimes that sparks an idea that probably only a Mexican could have think of, because they are always like immersing themselves in these kind of things and culture, right? Or the way everything, the way you approach and enter to a bar is probably different in England than the way you approach and enter a bar in Mexico. For example, at least here in the US, when you enter a bar, you always have to be like, how do I say, to reserve a seat or talk to somebody to reserve your seat. In Mexico, sometimes you just enter and sit down there and there's nobody at the door. These are just general ideas, but everybody has their own experiences, and then they share it in a way that end up complementing the ideas and the work. And I believe that's always like rich, because you end up with a work that's international, right? And probably better. But I don't know if I answered the question.
Yes, no, sure. I think like our stories, our personal stories, they are very good. They have very good insights also. They can bring very good insights to the work, right?
Yeah, I have been adding a lot of dancing ideas to the work, because something that it's very Latin American thing to do, even though I'm not very good at dancing. But I was raised watching everybody like dance and having a good time. So probably that's different from Europe. So yeah.
Great, thank you.
As someone who loves dancing, I fully support that. I feel like anywhere that you can get that in, like why not? Like it's something that's so happy. So fully support. Next, I know that Pamela has another question.
Yes, thank you. I have a different kind of question. So right now we are hearing a lot about artificial intelligence. So for you as an art director, do you think that this is a good thing or can somehow be bad for the advertising industry in the future?
Well, in my personal opinion, everybody, I mean, it's the way you take things. I mean, the way that, how could I say it? For me, I find it useful. If you find a way to make it useful for you, that's gonna benefit you and make it good. And I don't know. I'm not the kind of guy that likes to be like uh, getting worried all the time about those things. So instead of watching the bad side, to be honest, if that happens, I mean, at least for me, that will happen, and we'll need to. I'll figure out a way to overcome that or find a different way to approach it. But in the meantime, I'm taking advantage of it because I believe it's the thing that probably makes you a creative, uh, finding ways to hack the conversation. So I have used I've been using the this, how is it, Mid Journey, which is used for developing images, and it's a really good tool if you need to create an image from zero and you don't want to take much time to it, and it's helping you like make some part of the work and processes like faster. I've also used like chat gpt, and sometimes if I have something I want to say even in English and I need to find like different ways to tell that to tell that phrase, I use it for that. But I believe that humans and people are always going to be needed when you really want to have a unique specific thing in your work and craft things in a unique way. I don't know. uh, even right now, even right now, not talking specifically about the technology, but we have a lot of things that are done much quicker, much faster, and we still look for the crafted thing. It's so, or I don't know if that happens to you, but, and I'm just making a, probably, I don't know if you're really a good example, but I value more a pair of shoes that are done by hand, and they have certain details, unique details that a machine cannot do, than the ones that are produced or mass produced. I'm not saying they are bad. You can use everything in your advantage, but you just have to find a way and, and get into that perspective, I believe.
Thank you so much for raising the question. So, have you ever put like some image that you made in Mid Journey in a campaign or something?
Not in a campaign, because I believe that would need to be some. I mean, the idea would need to work around that using Midjourney, and I have seen a few ideas, and I believe a lot of them have uh, won at Cannes this year, but not for that, but for internal use, or probably even showing the client to get an approval. But it really helps you, because sometimes just as an art director, you spend a lot of time making a composition and integrating and making the proper lights, I mean, in things. So that helps, makes it work a little bit easy.
Yeah. hmm Yeah, it's way easier than like do a composition or open like the Photoshop or something. You just type everything there and they do it. But I just kept thinking that maybe I was like skipping process. So I don't know. Maybe it's like I don't know. The same way, maybe like a photographer that shots like great pictures in the iPhone, but doesn't have a professional camera. So he is a very good photographer, but he just like doesn't have like a professional camera, you know.
Mm.
So maybe that's what I was thinking. But
Yeah,
it's really good to hear your opinion about that.
yeah, and I don't think you need to lean 100% of that, but there's always something useful that you can take and bring that to your Photoshop and merge those things together and develop something new instead of just taking that, because I believe that's what makes it. That's the way you use it in a proper way, probably.
Yeah. Thank you.
Nice. So yeah, basically like using tools and not, considering them workers. They are
Yeah.
like tools, like you said. They're things that can be helpful, but they don't do the full job. Not where like it really matters anyway. So thanks for sharing your perspective on that. And we're unfortunately coming to a close. So in case anyone doesn't have any more like last questions, we're gonna move on to the last segment of our talk, which is just me bringing in some expressions or words that we use today that I think are worth highlighting. Disclaimer that I use every time is that I'm not an English teacher or professor. We're just like having a conversation and trying to pick up new vocabulary together. So I'm bringing it here for everyone to see. First of all, when we were discussing about Dia de los Muertos, or the Day of the Dead, we were trying to like find an expression over a message that comes from those who are no longer with us. And something that people use very commonly in English is from beyond. So that just means that is like from someone who has like passed, or from afterlife. Undersell is a word that we can use for when you give something less value than it is due. So either you're like underselling for competition, you really want to like put a lower value onto something to compete with something else, or when you're underselling yourself, that means that you're not putting enough credit to yourself, and someone might just call you out on the underselling of an idea, of your work, or something of the kind. Verses are what like lines of a song, or in this case a poem, are called. There are other names for specific types of verses. So it's something has like 2 like rhymes, or like 3, and like those kind of like specifics that I am not aware of. There are other names that you can use to describe verses, but in a general sense, that's the word that we use. To pursue is just a verb that we use a couple of times here in the conversation, and just means to follow, but it's in a more, it feels more engaging somehow. Like when you're talking about your career, you're usually gonna use like pursue. You're pursuing your dream, you're pursuing that career. A phrase that Javier used that I think it's like very interesting, I really love this expression, is you lose sight of what's important. So there's no tricks with the translation here. I'm sure everyone can figure out what it means, but it's just like seeing the expression as a whole, that like kind of like tricks us into started using it. So losing sight of what's important just means like losing sight of your values. For example, if you're just working towards an award and not actively thinking if the word is good or if you're proud of it, you may be losing sight of what's important. And I think this is the last one. This is just like a very simple manner of saying like how to, like when you book a table somewhere, just like the easiest way to say that is make a reservation. So do you have a reservation? Have you made a reservation? That's some different ways that you can say when you like book a table somewhere. So specifically in a restaurant, for example, in the US. And yes, I believe that is it. Javier, feel free to comment on anything, but again, we're just like highlighting things as we go.
No, it is really helpful for me too. I mean, I'm still learning. Actually, thank you very much, everyone, for having patience with me. I'm still learning and practicing my English, so there are sometimes I mess up, but I appreciate it. I mean, it was really nice to be here. And just one last thing, I always say in the this was my first talk in. I mean, I have done this before, but back in Mexico. This is my first time in English, so thank you very much for that, for the opportunity. I hope there will be many other interviews in the future. And something I always say in my when I talk to when I have this like interviews is where I really love is common sense. That's gonna take you through life. Believe me, just use common sense for everything, no matter what you do, no matter the work you do. Common sense is always going to get you through it. So thanks a lot.
Amazing, thank you. And I'm sure this will be the first of many interviews in English for you. So you did great. Everyone did great. And we really appreciate all of your presence here. And if anyone watching is wondering how you can be one of the moderators, asking the guests that we have every week questions is very simple. You just have to be a member of the Red Hook Creative Community, and then it's a free activity for you if you have a level of English, if you're comfortable speaking in. So it doesn't matter if it's perfect, like just being comfortable. You can show up and just like talk to our guests. So I hope to see everyone here at some point, and I hope everyone has a good rest of their week. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. See you next